Well, I think I mentioned in passing earlier on that Mario Draghi, the unelected central banker who has been ruling Italy with an iron fist for the past few months, has been forced to resign. The coalition in parliament that had supported his rise to power has abandoned him, specifically the Five Star Movement. And now we've had a chance, or who am I saying we? There's only one of me. I've had a chance to look into what we can expect after the next election, which is going to be on September the 25th. These are snap elections. I think that's what you would still call them, even though I don't know if that's a term that they use in Italy. And this will determine who will replace Draghi. And I have to say, the fact that Draghi was ever prime minister at all was quite disappointing, considering the parties in the coalition, that supported him, that put him up. And it was more that these parties couldn't agree amongst themselves, who they should pick from within their party, and so they settled on Draghi because he was, a part of none of them. But that's also why he sucked to a great degree. He was in no way accountable to the voters, and he really had no political affinity to any of the three parties. And those parties, of course, were the Five Star Movement, Lega Nord, or I think they call themselves something else, maybe just Lega, which is Matteo Salvini's party, and Silvio Berlusconi's party, Forza Italia. I believe it was just those three parties. And if you would pick someone really from any one of those, although really just kind of Forza and Lega at this point, Five Star Movement has... they don't seem to be what they once were promised to be, which was just total outsiders. I mean, the way I understand it, Five Star Movement was founded by a comedian as a joke party, so it was supposed to be total outsiders. And from what little I remember of Giuseppe Conte's reign as Prime Minister of Italy, before he was forced to resign in shame and be replaced by Draghi of all people, I don't remember anything particularly great coming out of him. Now, maybe there are other good people in the Five Star Movement, there probably are, but it seems as though their star has faded, and they will not be a part of the next governing coalition. They're not going to do as well in these upcoming elections as they have in the past. They're probably going to lose seats. And the party which is going to replace them in the coalition, it's still going to be three parties. It's going to be Lega, it's going to be Forza. But the third one, and now what is going to be the biggest party, appears to be Fratelli d'Italia. I believe that's the name of it. Brothers of Italy, something like that. And this is a party unlike the Five Star Movement, which was originally supposed to be sort of just anti-establishment, but not really left or right in any way. Just kind of it was a comedian. What was his name? Beppe Grillo or something. And they were just like, hey, the political class sucks. And that had its merits. But now you have this Brothers of Italy party are anti-establishment and explicitly right-wing. Much more along the lines of, let's say, a Viktor Orban. And so I was reading, I was surprised. There was a very good write-up on this in Zero Hedge that linked to a bunch of other articles that you could also read to get deeper, deeper exploration of a bunch of these different parties. The general consensus seems to be that if the polls are correct and they hold for the next 2 months, the government which takes over in Italy, the prime minister, the leader of the Brothers of Italy party, who is ironically a woman, and will likely be the person who replaces Mario Draghi, it will pretty much be an Orbanite government, if I can use that term. Italy will go from being led by an unelected central banker, Mario Draghi, one of the worst people in the world, to being led by a government which has a near supermajority in both houses of parliament, which ideologically is aligned with Hungary. I mean, that would be a remarkable shift. Now, is it, in terms of voting, is it that remarkable of a shift? Well, no, because, I mean, two of these three parties in the coalition, were already there. There were the left. It's not like Italy's going from having a left-wing government to a right-wing government. They're going from having a liberal Eurocratic prime minister, who for some reason, I don't know enough about Italian politics to understand why someone like Salvini, would support Draghi as prime minister. And same goes for Berlusconi. As an outsider, that just looks bizarre to me. How could Draghi have the support of anyone, let alone, the right? And same goes for the Five-Star Movement. I would think that somebody like Draghi, would be the personification of everything that they hated about Italian politics. But again, this is Italian politics is complicated enough, and as an outsider, I'm not going to pretend that I understand it fully. But if this is true, or I shouldn't say if this is true, if the polls hold, if the polls are somewhat accurate, and if the Brothers of Italy party ends up being the largest party in the country, they will surely form an alliance with Salvini and Berlusconi. I think I understand enough about the situation to say that with certainty. And even if they don't have a supermajority, even if they don't have a two-thirds supermajority and can, change the Italian constitution, it would still send an earthquake throughout the European Union to have an openly Eurosceptic government, that is on par with Hungary in terms of its hostility towards Brussels. Take over Italy, which is one of the, the three founding member states of the EU. It's one of the three major EU countries. You have Italy, Germany, and France. Those were from the, long before Britain was ever involved in the European community, what became the EU. The three pillars, central pillars, were Italy, Germany, and France. And yes, you had the Benelux countries, which predated even them, but they're small and they don't really matter. Yes, Brussels is where all the European government crap is, and that is, I guess, a nod to Belgium's legacy as, being one of the progenitors of all this, but it's still always going to be a small, insignificant country. Italy is not, nor is it on the fringe of the European Union like Hungary is. And so if they're worried about tiny little Hungary and Viktor Orban, or even Poland, although I think they're less worried about Poland these days because Poland has just gone off the deep end with their Russiagate. Well, Russiagate's the wrong term. I guess you would call it Russophobia. I never really like that term because it is a term that the Russians themselves tend to push. But I don't know what else term to use to describe Poland these days. They seem to be completely on board with the entire European Great Reset agenda, so long as it means that they can stick it to Putin. So I'm not even sure to what extent Poland is still an anti Eurocrat, Eurosceptic country. But Hungary definitely still is, and it looks like Italy soon will be as well. And if we have to trade Poland for Italy, I think that's a pretty fair trade, because Italy is more important. Italy's going to do more damage to the EU if it has a Eurosceptic government than Poland ever could. Because while Italy, is the poorest and most backward of the three, really important European states, it is still that. It is still important. And if Italy was interested in leaving the EU, I think that would be a death blow to the EU. Because what is the EU without Italy? What is Europe without Rome? Hell, the original treaty that first created, what went on to become, over many decades, the European Union was the Treaty of Rome, I believe, of course, signed in Italy. And so even if the Italians don't try to secede from the EU, how is it going to look to have the Germans and the French coming down hard on Italy like they do on Hungary, sanctioning Italy, for their democratic backsliding, calling the government in Italy, fascist? Because you know that they're not going to get along with these people. They're not going to be nice to them. They're going to agitate them. And do you think that the Italians will take that sitting down? Do you think that that will make the Italians want to change who they're voting for? And do you think it will make them like the EU more? Or do you think it will make them more hostile to the EU? Do you think it'll make them more likely to leave the EU and take a lot of other countries with them? Perhaps Hungary. I mean, if a country, as prominent as Italy ever came close to leaving the European Union, you think a country like Hungary or Poland would stay? I mean, at that point, I would think that even Austria leaving the EU would be on the table. And so I think that this is a reason to be optimistic about the future, especially at a time when there's really not a whole lot to be happy about in the world, particularly when it comes to the future of Europe. Now, if only by some miracle, Nigel Farage could become the Prime Minister of Great Britain, I'd really be happy about what's going on over there and think that the Europeans might be able to turn things around, But hey, at least Brexit is done, even if they still have crappy leaders, like Liz Truss, who appears to be, the next Prime Minister of Great Britain, a walking disaster. Even if Macron, is still the president of France, it appears to me that the EU is losing its grip little by little, and that Eurosceptics are going to continue to make gains. Now, maybe not in Germany. Germany is a lost cause. It is a suicidal society. They hate themselves. They hate their history. They hate their culture. I don't know what to say about the Germans. My advice is, if you're a good person in Germany, would probably be just move somewhere else. You probably speak English if you live in Germany. But even if you don't, you could go live in Austria or Switzerland, or hell, Liechtenstein, one of the greatest countries on earth. But I don't think that things can get better before getting much worse economically for people in Europe. The breakup of the EU is going to involve a lot of pain. It won't be as painful as staying in the EU, but it's going to hurt. If Italy tried to, because let's be honest, these folks who are going to get elected in Italy, these are fiscally irresponsible, to say the least. These are people who don't believe in budgets. These are people who want the ECB to subsidize their exorbitant welfare programs. And I would venture to guess that were Italy to withdraw from the European Union, the recently resurrected Italian lira would perform in the market, in the foreign exchange markets, a lot like the Turkish lira. I would think that an independent Italy would suffer potentially from actual hyperinflation, not just high inflation, the kind that we deal with here in the United States, but like actual Weimar-style hyperinflation. I don't think that any of the leaders in modern-day Italy could handle the administration of a fiat currency. And I say that as someone who doesn't like fiat currencies. One of the big risks of a fiat currency is that the people in charge can choose to just print millions and millions of notes to pay for government spending and destroy your currency. That is a real risk. And I think that risk happens. And so, if I were someone living in Italy, I would be very, very worried about the economic implications of separating from the EU. But at the end of the day, I would think that it's worth it to not be a part of that vampiric system. yes, at the end of the day, even if an independent Italian government is incompetent and irresponsible, at least you have more control over that than you would an unelected bureaucracy in Brussels. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.